Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. It's been another week of summer homemaking and cooking in my kitchen. It is late summer. Fall is starting to tease us just a little bit. I am just really enjoying the last of the summer that we have here. Our garden has given us more than I expected this year, one of which was this beautiful watermelon that grew so big every single day and delighted my kids. Finally, it's ready for them to eat and enjoy. Summertime here means lots and lots of vegetables, lots and lots of salads. I like to keep it light and protein rich, so I'm going to share with you some of the staples that we have really enjoyed this summer. One of the really fun things that I learned was how to make milk kefir. I was gifted some kefir grains and that just brought me so much happiness. If I had known how simple it was, I would have done this way sooner. It's actually even simpler than making yogurt. If you've ever made yogurt from scratch before, you know that you kind of have to heat up the milk and then let it cool and then add the culture. You don't even have to do that extra step. So whenever I want to serve my family kefir, the process starts the day before. I just take the jug that the milk comes in, and this was about half a gallon the day before. I just added the grains to it and I closed the lid, not too tightly. And then I just let it sit on the counter and waited about 12 hours, and the cultures kind of work their magic within the milk, and 12 hours later I have kefir. It's just that simple. So here I am straining out the kefir. You have to strain your kefir in order to catch the grain, so you can take it and put it in a little jar or just put it in your next batch of milk that you want to make into kefir. I'm just going to save my grains for next time. I like to strain it directly in the blender, that way I can add whatever flavors that I want to add. Not that you really need any, but my kids like it with some honey, with some salt. Today I actually have some homemade strawberry syrup that I had made previously, so I'm just going to add that in for some nice extra strawberry flavor. So that all goes into the blender. To my kefir I added strawberry syrup, some vanilla essence, about half a cup of sugar, and some honey. So for my half-gallon milk I got about 8 cups of kefir. Kefir is something that we can just sip on all day long. It just tastes so fresh, and during the hot summer days, this is a drink that cools me down and we get our daily probiotics. For us, kefir is an excellent summertime drink. After we figure out who's going to press the button of the blender, about 20 seconds later, we have kefir. So here I am making some cherry barbecue sauce to go along with my pork. This is a picnic roast. It's boneless, and I'm making this. It's kind of like a sweet, savory sauce. So for the sauce, I'm dicing up 1 serrano pepper. You can use whatever kind of chilies you like, depending on how much heat your family can tolerate. And then I'm going to thinly slice up an onion. For the sauce, I'm going to add that to a bowl, and then I'm adding about half a cup of vinegar, some Worcestershire sauce, some honey, some salt, pepper. I'm also going to add some cherry syrup. If there were some whole cherries, that would be great, but I don't have that. I just have the syrup, so that's what I'm going to use, and kind of mix that all together, and that's pretty much the base of the sauce. I'm also adding some Mexican hot sauce, but if you don't have that, you could just use tomato paste and some extra vinegar, and that will be a good substitute. When I was first learning how to cook, I came across this book. It was called Salt, Acid, Fat, and Heat. And the basic idea was that if you can master these four elements in your food, then you can make some really delicious meals. I have incorporated that idea into how I develop my recipes. I've also observed that there's a fifth element that really helps enhance flavor, texture, all of that in your food. And that fifth element is time. Time can do wonders for adding depth of flavor, texture, all sorts of health benefits to your food. For example, I was just talking about kefir and how waiting 12 hours when you ferment your milk, you're getting this sour taste, you're getting a thicker texture, you're getting the probiotics that form because of this specific culture. It's the same when you're making your bread. If you're making homemade bread and you leave your dough to bulk ferment overnight or for 8 hours in the fridge versus sitting it out for an hour, you will notice that the 8 hours really helped create that depth of flavor in your bread, and that flavor cannot just be added in. It's just a matter of patience and planning ahead. The same goes with the meats. Recently, I've been making a lot of meat in our Dutch oven, marinating it in the morning and just setting it to slow cook over the course of the day, and that results in just this soft, fall apart, melt in your mouth meat, and it's just infused with flavor, and you really cannot get that if you were just 30 minutes out from setting up your dinner. When you're thinking about your week ahead and what meals you're going to make, just planning ahead, making that a habit is really going to be beneficial, not only for saving time, but also for the fullness and enjoyment of the meal. So I'm using about half a cup of flour, cocoa powder, add some salt. Now I like Ghirardelli's cocoa powder because it is just rich and wonderful. If you ever find yourself out of baking powder but you still want to make some chocolate brownies, as long as you have some sourdough starter, you can actually go ahead and make those brownies. I love fudgy chocolate brownies, especially with some ice cream. They taste so good. In a hot pan, I'm going to take half a stick of butter, let it melt, and then I'm going to add a cup of sugar. If you have brown sugar, that's even better. You could add molasses to your white sugar to give it the nice chewy, fudgy texture that we all love so much about brownies. Then give it a quick stir. I'm going to take 2 eggs, and then I'm going to just take a yolk of one of the eggs, mix it all up so that it's all smooth and creamy. After this is all mixed, I'm going to add in my sourdough discard. Then I'm going to get my dry mix and incorporate it to create the batter. I'm going to top it off with chocolate chips because who doesn't like chocolate chips in their brownies? And then I'm going to bake it at 350 degrees until the toothpick comes out nice and clear. And that is one of my favorite go-to after dinner treat if I want to satisfy a sweet tooth. It's quick, it's in one pan, there's very minimal cleanup afterwards, and that's what I love about this recipe. Recently I've been making this snack made out of potatoes and whole wheat flour. This is actually a traditional recipe that I grew up with. It's called aloo paratha. It's a whole wheat tortilla made out of potato dough, and my kids have really been enjoying it. I've been making it to eat at home if we are out somewhere, to a park or a play date or a field trip, and so I wanted to share this with you. It's one of my favorite snacks growing up as a child back in India, so I wanted to share that with you. And it's a great recipe if you have leftover mashed potatoes. You can use that up in this recipe. So I started off with 2 potatoes that I'm kind of smashing with my hands, but you can also use a KitchenAid to mash it up and get it fluffy. To my potatoes, I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of butter and some salt, pepper. Traditionally, we would add cumin, coriander, turmeric, a whole bunch of different Indian spices, but I'm just keeping it real simple here with salt, pepper, and cayenne pepper. And then I'm going to start adding my flour. I like to add it 1 cup at a time, so I added about 3 cups in total to my potatoes and a cup of water. The dough starts off really wet and sticky, and you feel like it's never gonna come together, but eventually with enough kneading it does, and it only takes about 5 to 7 minutes for it to come together and be soft, kind of sticky, but not to the point where it sticks to the counter. And that's when you know the dough is sort of ready, and then you just let it sit for about 10 to 30 minutes to let the gluten form. When you have a lot of little helpers in the kitchen, it's sometimes nice to set up a little assembly line, so you get somebody to form little balls of dough and then somebody else to roll it out, and then a third person to sort of fry it and flip it, and that way you can get through a whole bunch of tortillas pretty easily. So to start off with, you need to get the pan really nice and hot. You know it's ready when you throw some water in and it starts to sizzle. And then with each ball of dough, I like to dip it in some excess flour because this is kind of sticky and it will stick to your rolling pin if it's not coated in flour. So get that coated in some flour and then roll it out just like you would a normal tortilla, and then you can start frying it. I like to fry it in some olive oil or some butter, and it tastes so good. You cook it on one side for about 2 to 3 minutes until it starts to bubble. Then you flip it over and you cook it for about 30 to 40 seconds on the other side, and it's ready and it's soft. This tortilla is more filling than a regular tortilla. So if you do make this at home, let me know in the comments below. And that's all that I have for you today. Thank you for joining me in the kitchen today, and see you guys next time.